Yo, apprentices, acolytes, and fellow lords. Coming into the Dark Temple, visited by Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and Kyle Katarn, and so many other Force sensitives like yourself. I'm Lord Dagovere, fam. And it's so good to see you. Let's go. Let's go. I got my my Sith jersey. Let me show you guys. Yo. It says Vader on the back. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I love it. That's the team we're supporting today. Yo, Razor, so good to see you. Thank you so much. Anthony in the chat. Trent, Logan coming in. Yo, can I get for the first time today? Ready up. Let's go, man. How you guys doing today? How's all the Sith lore? How's all the Jedi lore? How's all the Star Wars lore? I did want to talk briefly about certain things, like Ahsoka finishing filming, but also, of course, we're going to be talking about some Star Wars horror. I have some of the RPG books up, and we're just going to go around and talk just a little bit about some of my favorite things inside of the source books. Source books are awesome, man. If you guys don't have any Star Wars source books, you have to get some. They are sick. They are very, very, very fun. How you guys doing today? David Torres says, let's go. Dark side for life. Dude, I know. It's awesome. I love it so much. I wish I could get more, honestly. I wish there were so many different versions. Yes, Ultimate Adversaries. Yes, Ultimate Adversaries and the Unknown Regions. Some of my favorites. There's a lot of really good stuff in these source books. Honestly, like, Ultimate Adversaries and the Unknown Regions are probably some of the greatest Star Wars anythings, and I feel like a lot of people, like, have no idea about these things. Of course, like, we're going to get into stuff like the Star Weird, maybe on this stream today, if not, maybe next week or the week after, but oh my god, man, there's, like, that's just the beginning. It's just the beginning, and it's so crazy how, you know, I have made a lot of videos about certain Star Wars entities and Star Wars horror that a lot of people, I just feel like, have kind of, like, just overlooked. But man, there's some amazing stuff in there, and it's pretty good. Damn, guys, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm so tired today. I just started a new job, and it's been rolling in with a lot of, like, really crazy. It's very challenging, very, very good stuff. But yeah, man, challenges you in the right way, you know. But thank you guys, ever become Illusion over here. Thank you so much, Daddy Sheev. Let's freaking go, Anthony. Yo, let's freaking go. I hope you guys are doing well today. Empire for life, yes sir, yes sir. But how you guys doing, huh? Are you guys excited about Ahsoka Season 2 finish filming? That's pretty hype. I mean, I know a lot of people don't really like Ahsoka. I enjoyed it. It's one of my favorites. I know it's got a lot of flaws and a lot of issues, but I really enjoyed what it did. Anthony says, I have served in the 501st for 20 years. Empire for life. Damn, man, right there. Vader's fist. Let's freaking go, dude. That's the way you do it, you know? Yeah, but so I've heard and I've seen the posts about Ahsoka, and I mean, I'm excited. I'm always going to be excited for Star Wars. I loved the Anakin parts. I loved the Mortis parts. I love Peridia. I really liked those aspects of Ahsoka. But outside of that, those are probably what I rewatch the most. The Disney project that I probably rewatch the most is probably Mandalorian, first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and then outside of that, it's episode 5 and 6 of the Ahsoka series. Those are my favorites. I really enjoyed those. Or maybe it's episode 4? Episode 4 and 5? I think it's 4 and 5. Those are my favorites. But yeah, I know a lot of people aren't too hyped on Sabine, but I love Balin. I love Shin. I think there's a lot of really great story there and potential, but of course, at the end of the day, I'm not the one writing it, so we'll see. Logan says Kurgan Dala and Ultimate Adversaries is a spooky story. I'm gonna have to see that one, because that's another thing. I'm not sure a lot of people who only watch Star Wars YouTube videos, right, really understand, like, where the lore is coming from. And there's a lot of really great stories, especially when you learn about the Jedi Shadow and then I Seal Republic campaign guide. That is really cool. When you start to read the campaign guide, there's bits of lore that doesn't come from the game. It's specific to that. It's pretty sick, and I've always really enjoyed why or how the source books kind of elaborate so much more on what you're getting. It's pretty good stuff, man. Yes, possessed by a space wraith turned him into a serial killer. What the frick? Really? That's not even a part of the space wraith part, if I remember correctly. I thought the space wraith part of the source book was that they basically had possessed a whole freaking squadron of TIE fighter pilots, and the TIE fighter pilots went back into the Star Destroyer, and they started possessing not just people but also droids as well. Okay, so it's specifically current Dallas. That's insane. I don't think I've ever seen that. I'll have to check that one out, because I read a lot of the source books, but I specifically remember that from the Space Wraith, and I do not remember that at all. I'm gonna have to check that out. That's pretty cool. Has anybody even like made videos about that? I feel like there's so many things in Star Wars source books where like I'll come across and like, you know, like no one's made a video about this. No one's made it. I know. Of course you did, bro. Of course you did. My boy. See, you're so cultured, man. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, not throwing shade at any Star Wars content creator at all. I think Star Wars content is really good, and especially, you know, how can I say this? Like, there's a certain aspect of movie-only Star Wars fans, right? And they like certain aspects of Star Wars. For instance, what's been popping off the last 2 years, the last year, I would say, is Death Troopers. Death Troopers has been popping off like crazy. Before that, it was the Star Weird. The Star Weird was popping off like crazy. Just, these are elements of Star Wars horror for anybody that doesn't know on YouTube and TikTok, just letting you guys know. Which, by the way, TikTok, guys, we are also on YouTube Live, so if you want to go over there and check it out, let me know. Yo, SJ, so good to see you. Everybody, welcome SJ to the channel with the Ready Up. Yeah, it's really interesting how those stories kind of like generate a lot of hype, you know, especially with the Purge, especially with the Vector Star Destroyer. You know, there's just so much how people just quickly become like really fascinated with certain aspects. But then there's like, I think the space race are really cool. I think also the swamp, what is it called? The swamp. I made a video on it. The swamp marsh, the marsh. Oh no, I think it's the marsh hunt. Yeah, those guys are really cool too. And those guys have issues with the Jedi. And you find all of this out in the Jedi Knight source books. You find it out in the Ultimate Adversaries books. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we're going to go over. But, yeah. Yes. I think it's well, I don't think it's called a Martian. I think it's called a Marsh Haunt. I think that's what it's called. And it's in the Jedi Knight source book. It's really cool. I've made a video about it last year for Halloween. I made a video about it, definitely. Yeah, it's pretty sick. Thank you so much, guys. Michelle, Illusion, Terrence, and Amanda, thank you so much for coming over here. Appreciate all the Star Wars. Anthony says, I'm a Tell Me a Star Wars Story fan. I've been for 50 years. Yeah, I feel like that's always the best thing. I don't know if anyone inside the chat has like always talked about with a friend. Maybe there's that one friend that you've talked in the Star Wars lore. I always think about the meme with SpongeBob, and SpongeBob is sitting there by the fire with, I think, like Mr. Krabs or somebody, and I always enjoyed that, where maybe if you're on TikTok you would see the 501st journals playing as SpongeBob is listening to it. I think that's always such a funny meme, and that's how I kind of feel like at times where you're talking about Star Wars lore, the one person that knows a lot about Star Wars lore, and then you're listening to them, and you're just kind of enjoying everything they're going off. Something like that with like the Death Troopers is actually crazy, especially if you don't even know zombies exist in Star Wars. And in my opinion, they are worse than zombies. You know, they are absolutely worse than zombies. But if you were going to make a movie off of that, and a new Star Wars story, I think there's elements that probably need to be improved. And it's not like Death Troopers is bad, because Death Troopers is, in my opinion, a very good book. But I think there's a lot that could make it better, you know. Especially with, like, Harvest, which is a really interesting book, which is connected to that, and the virus. But yeah, man. But let's get inside the chat, both TikTok and YouTube Live. What are the Star Wars horror stories you want to hear? If you were in charge, what would be your Star Wars horror story? This is your pitch right now. Sell me on what you want in terms of Star Wars horror. You can even go into the source books. You could just make up whatever you want from Star Wars The Old Republic or just a brand new component of Star Wars. I would love to see what you all would want in terms of a Star Wars story when it comes to horror. For me, I don't really like, like blood and guts and stuff like that. I think there are other elements of horror that you can do, that you can use and have your imagination to create something really terrifying. But the stuff that I always hear about is Darth Vader, the Darth Vader is the villain, or something else. I think Death Troopers is really cool. Star Weirds are really cool. Space Wraiths, Marsh Hunts, dude, there's just so much. The list goes on, especially if you're looking to the source books like Ultimate Adversary and Unknown Regions, which are pretty cool. But yeah, I'm going to continue to read, see if anyone on TikTok has, no one's going on there. Let's see what else. Pretty chill day today. I'm assuming a lot of people are just busy as hell. It seems like, ever since school's back in October, everyone's doing their thing. So I'm just trying to talk and chill with you guys for a little bit. We'll probably go for like 45 minutes today. Mentally, I'm pretty exhausted. I'm taxed with this new job, but it's only a couple weeks of this, and I should go back to my fun, thriving self. Yeah, hope you're doing well, SJ. Thank you so much for coming over here, fam. Treasure hunting on Korriban, traps, ghost schools, creatures, ancient secrets. That would be really cool. I think Korriban is really interesting. I think also planets that are in Sith space that maybe people don't know about, which would be really cool. Because one thing that I've understood, especially that I've seen from Legends continuity and new canon, is that places like Korriban are like, everybody knows about them. People that are going to Korriban, let's say, they're people that are like smugglers, or maybe they're someone in the black market trying to find things that they're not supposed to, so there really isn't going to be a lot of fun or how can I say, compelling stories, because it seems like everybody in the Star Wars universe knows about these planets. It's almost like Egypt. You're going to go there, so you're not going to find anything new that people have already found. And I think that's really interesting about Korriban. If there was a horror story involved with Korriban, what year would it have to be? I feel like it would have to be around Battle of Ruusan, maybe. Stuff where this part of space is still being explored and is still isn't really known to the rest of the galaxy. And it's almost like taboo. I think that would be really interesting. Gage on TikTok says people don't know about Exegol really either. Yes, but Exegol, I feel like at the end of the day, if you're talking about a horror story, Exegol almost seems like it's off limits because, one with Rise of Skywalker, but it does seem like it is a Sith heaven or a Sith hell, I guess you could say. So it's very hard for a normal person to maneuver and get inside of this area of Exegol. But Korriban could be really compelling because Korriban is infected with the dark side. I think Zoist, and Nithema, all of these planets, Droman Kaas would be really interesting, especially with the Dark Temple and everything else that's on there with its monuments. I think even Lihone, Rakana Prime, would be really, really sick. I love the idea of people getting stranded. And maybe it's some type of storm or an anomaly that pulls them out of hyperspace and makes them crash land on this planet. That would be really cool. And then maybe you're on Lihone. The Rakata. It's also home to an invasive species of Rancors. And maybe a Tarantatek. But also other things go bump in the night on Lihone, because it's also runs so deep in the dark side of the Force that even rivals Korriban. Dathomir is a very great place to have a horror story. But I love Korriban. And I also love the idea, I don't know, man. Death Troopers, the more and more I think about Death Troopers, it could be a banger. You know, even if you already know the story. Because the idea of this vector, right? This Star Destroyer that's out there that is literally harboring the dead that come alive. And nobody knows that this Star Destroyer is out there. And the only people that really know is the Imperial Bioweapons Department for the Empire and Darth Vader. And maybe a few other people. That's it. Outside of that, like, this Star Destroyer is just floating in the Outer Rim somewhere, dead in space. And even when you finish the book, spoilers, nothing happens to the Star Destroyer. It is still out there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Logan, but it is still out there. So that is crazy. You know, oh my God, I think there's also a really interesting planet too. Let me see. All right, you know, we're gonna have to get into this Ultimate Adversary stuff. You may have to call me out sometimes, Logan, if I'm wrong. Isn't there a planet where the Sith used to kind of like lure Jedi there, and it's like a basically a giant graveyard. And I can't remember what planet it is, but the planet itself is like kind of like shrouded in a force storm. I've made a video on this planet before. I know I have, and I'm not sure if it's in the Ultimate Adversaries or the Unknown. It might be in the unknown regions. I may have to check it out. Yeah, really crazy fun stuff. Malachor is canon. Malachor would be really cool. Malachor is really interesting. There could be a lot. We're caught in our canon again too. Yep, thanks to Andor. It's all good stuff. Thank you so much, Gage. Really appreciate you and your participation, fam. If you want to join us on YouTube, let me know. Coruscant level 0 archaeology. You know, okay, so Coruscant is also really cool. Especially the lower levels of Coruscant where the guard doesn't go. Stormtroopers don't go. There's a lot that can probably happen. I think that's pretty sick. I don't know, man. Star Wars just has so many elements of horror that I feel like you can do. So let's take a look-see at some of this stuff. You guys want to take a look with me? So this is what we're gonna do. All right. So for anyone that's on TikTok, we have a whole entire thing here of stuff. And so one of the things that I've always thought was so cool is this guy right here, the Crown of Silk. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Crown of Silk, but there's going to be a lot of really interesting, obscure Star Wars stuff that we're going to talk about today. And despite this peaceful, pleasant environment on Syria, this still is a natural order of flora and fauna of the plant. Predators and prey both still exist, with a food chain that runs from the smallest vermin to the most evolved predator. The highly intelligent Serines play a part in that order as well, as proven by the existence of small nocturnal parasite. The Crown of Silk get their names from their appearance. As you can tell, it looks like a little headpiece, and it's really interesting. But when I read this stuff, I was like, what the flip, bro? A Crown of Silk's body forms a thin circlet roughly 80 centimeters in diameter. It is partially sheer, having a gauzy, filmy appearance. Thin tendrils of varying lengths float both above and below the main body of the creature, giving the appearance of ribbons. So I want to go where actually it talks about what happens. Okay, I think it gets here. So crowns have a life cycle of 3 days and reproduce by dividing themselves in half. They are usually found alone, though they have been known to travel in groups. Okay, here we go. So they apparently have some basic level nonverbal communication skills through which they can give basic signals. Where one feeds, other will often arrive soon after, and if one is attacked, the other unattached crowns will play. Crowns of Silk feed by floating down. All right, this is it. Crowns of Silk feed by floating down over the head of a victim, then contracting to the size of its skull. They appear to be oddly attracted to force-using individuals, though they will also attract other sentient beings. They rarely attack other creatures, though no one is sure why this is. Once a crown is attached, it excites the brain to a fever pitch. What the flip? With a euphoric neurological toxin, and then somehow feeds off the resulting brain energies. This euphoric state and the resultant feeding frenzy of the crown can take any form, can take anywhere from 1 hour to a few hours. Once sated, the crown emits a soft phosphorescent glow. It will then release its victim and rise into the air, where it divides along with horizontal axes, creating a new crown of silk. Victims of the crown of silk are often dazed for days following the attack, but fatalities are unheard of. Interesting. Rarely, a Force user will lose some of their connection to the Force for a while, but they eventually regain the previous degree of control. That is so weird, dude. That is so crazy. You love Bo-Katan? Dude, Bo-Katan's sick. I love Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan! Yeah, I like Bo-Katan. I really enjoyed her. I love this side of Star Wars, obscure creatures. Yes, there's so many of these, and that's why I've always loved the source books, because no one's making videos on these. I have made videos on these. Logan makes videos on these, but I don't have 3 million subs, so when I talk about something, it's going to go into the abyss until someone else finds it and then makes a video, which happens a lot, by the way. If you follow the stream and follow this content a while, you will see when I make a video, eventually someone else will copy that video, make another video, and it's happened quite a lot. And I think if you do your research, you will see which creators have done that to me. But that's my fault for not being a larger creator. But this stuff is so damn interesting because it's just one of many. And there's 40 plus years of Star Wars expanded universe that a lot of people don't know about. It's not just in the cartoons or the video game. There's so much about these obscure facts. Like, for instance, this one. I made this one. This was one of the first videos I made for the horror side, and it is the what's I think it's the bone worm. Is it not the bone worm? Yes, I think it's the bone worm. Yes, the bone worm. Okay, so yes, the creature. What the heck? Wait, where is it? So bone worm. Isn't it up here? What the flip? Okay, yeah. So bone worms are really interesting. Okay, and there is only one photo of them ever. And let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. There we go. So these bone worms are crazy, dude. And not only is the bone worm crazy, because it does remind me a little bit of like xenomorphs, an Alien, and also Prometheus. And the planets that they're on is so interesting in Star Wars because the whole planet is like filled with dead people. It was as if, how Korriban is all about like building pyramids and statues and honoring like the dead in some form, whether it's Dark Lords of the Sith or anything else, like the Sith purebloods. This specific planet was practically a funeral home of the galaxy. So they were literally just putting people here, right? What is it, a necropolis? I think that's what it's called, right? And so the whole planet is supposed to be a graveyard. And what's crazy about these bone worms is we'll read a little bit of writing. So bone worms, oh my god, yeah, you guys, because I've made a video about this already, but it's really cool when you actually get like the full force, no pun intended, of these stories. Bone worms are native to Necropolis, a star system that's described in many galactic tour hollows as living portal into an ancient funeral rites of the core worlds. Located in the fringe of the core region, Necropolis was settled nearly 15,000 years ago by a religious order that was appalled by the way cultures of the core, human and alien alike, grew more similar to one another since travel and communication between distant stars became more commonplace. This order set aside a part of the world for each core world culture and invited any culture to inter its dead on Necropolis according to that culture's native traditions. After a few millennia, terraforming efforts were undertaken on the system's other planets to open new areals for burial, and soon the entire system was known as Necropolis, a world that means City of the Dead. The name became so widely accepted that the modern galaxy, the system's proper name, Dartag, only appears on military star charts. Bone worms are one of the many life forms native to Necropolis. The system this is the system's primary world. Subterranean scavengers that feed primarily on bone marrow of freshly dead beings. They search for food by following movement tremors from the ground. If those tremors stop for an extended period, the bone worms burrow up through the ground, using their powerful jaws to rend flesh and crack open bones so they can suck the marrow. While the bone worms primarily seek carcasses and usually retreat back into the ground if their victim shows signs of life, they do not care if they are feeding on an unconscious or otherwise immobile but still living being. They feed on the fresh bone marrow and are not choosy about the nature of the flesh that encases it. So even if you're alive, these guys do not care because you are sustenance. And that is crazy, man. That's insane. I think it even gets into the point of like how crazy they are and how sensitive they are in terms of like movement. But this picture I always felt like was so terrifying, where this guy steps down and you can see that like they're all around. Like he's done. Like it's a wrap for this guy. He's cooked. He's done. Logan says Dr. Everson created a serum to raise the dead of Necropolis and created a zombie army. There's a scene in one of the kids is buried alive in the coffin and hears the bone worms trying to chew through. What is that from? Is that from one of the Galaxy of Fear? Oh, is that City of the Dead? Is that what it is? That's number 2. Is that number 2 of Galaxy of Fear? I have that one. Okay, so that's the next one. I'm literally reading the first one. Damn, I'm gonna have to finish that. That sounds really cool, man. I may just skip the first one. The first one for me is like not doing anything for me. Eaten Alive, it's I don't know. I'm like halfway through it and it's just not doing anything. I may have to damn, I may just skip it and go straight to 2, man. That's pretty cool. All right, let's see what else they do. So bone worms are presently among the most plentiful native life forms on Necropolis. They are, in fact, one of the few members of the original fauna to remain. They range in the size of a few centimeters to just over 1 meter in length. Their skin is an off-white color, and they constantly secrete slime in order to move more easily through their burrow tunnels. That's right, that was also freaky, is how they're able to move, and it's basically like a xenomorph. So, especially like the early stages of a xenomorph, that's what they remind me of so much, which I think is really crazy. Yeah, man, it's really, 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 really interesting how the Star Wars horror. I just feel like the sky's the limit, dude. Their mouths are lamprey-like suction cups, but they can contract muscles and jut forward hard. Bone-like spurs that aid them in the tunneling, tearing flesh and cracking open bones in coffins, bro. Bro, if I saw a worm break into a coffin, I'm out. I may be dead, but I'm out. I'm not dealing with this. That is crazy. Anyway, guys, bone worms in Star Wars. Make sure you watch out for that on Necropolis. That's what I think is really cool. You know, what if someone doesn't know about that planet or that system? That's sick. That's the type of stuff that I feel like, you know, modern Star Wars stories can really get into. And there's so it's so interesting. Okay, so made a video on the Gorax already, which you guys have probably seen. The implanter is crazy. Read Z21B article. Okay. All right, I shall do that. Yeah, if you ever got the link, just hit me up or put it in the expanded universe part of the Discord, and we'll get into there. And then I'll probably just go ahead and watch it. I've talked about the Lilac. Lilac is crazy, man. All right, so let me get into some of the other ones, like the Unknown Regions, which the Unknown Regions is such a good PDF, man. So if you guys have ever been interested in reading Star Wars, I think that you should get into source books. I think source books have some of the most fun lore that you don't know, and some of them also have the most important lore. For instance, just like the Gorman Massacre was inside that 1990 Imperial source book too, and you know, look how important that is now. That Gorman Massacre is like crazy important, especially when you come to Andor. Ultimate Adversaries. Okay, so I will read the Ultimate Adversaries book in its Z21B. So let me go all the way down to Z. if this is where I'm actually supposed to go. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I went the wrong place. Oh, these are the droids. Okay, let me go up and see if there's an actual index. Under characters? Okay, thank you, Logan. Appreciate it. I actually have to find it because I think the characters might be a little lower. Yeah, I think so. Oh, here we go. Okay. So Z21B. All right. All right, ready, guys? We're ready for some crazy. So Z21B, sometimes referred to as the Doctor by its creations, is an independent droid with a mission all on its own. Z21B started out as a standard medical droid working for a remote medical research unit on a sparsely inhabited planet. His road to independence began with a lethal plague hit the inhabitants of the planet. There was no cure for the new infection, which proved resistant to any standard treatments. The planet was declared under quarantine as the medical staff sought to find a way to fight the disease. Unfortunately, they died before being able to create an effective cure. Left alone and forgotten, Z21B continued on his research for some time. He determined that help was needed to discover the cure in any sort of reasonable time frame, so he adapted his programming to build full droids instead of just cybernetic implants. Once he had help, he was able to finish his research and synthesize a cure. Unfortunately, there were no sentient life forms left to save. Years had passed by, and all the people he had tried to save were long gone, ravaged by the disease he had finally conquered. Only the droids were left, with no one left to give him instructions, and subordinate droids relying on him for a continued purpose. Z21B began to puzzle out the next logical move. Bereft of any conflicting input, he came to realize the futility of his act given the fragile nature of organic life. No matter what actions he took, they would continue to die, while the droids would again find themselves looking for a new master, still the same as they ever were and needing only light maintenance to stay in good working order. Z21B suddenly realized that humans were inferior to droids, and with the revelation came independence. He renamed himself the Doctor and set about finding ways to capitalize on the superiority of the mechanical form. What the fuck? That is crazy. What the flip? That man, that's crazy. That was insane. You know, it's so funny because like I usually look for like yeah, man. Look at the goals paragraph. Okay. All right, let's see. So this is Z21B's goal. Z21B wants to build the ultimate droid, one that appears organic but without any of the flaws of a living body. He dreams of creating a droid that can walk among organic creatures as an equal. To that end, he has taken his knowledge of cybernetic limbs and prosthetics and applied it to his helpers, with some rather freakish result droids with realistic organic-looking hands, limbs, or partial craniums of a number of species that are found throughout the complex. What the flip? Z21B still has Viciousness code as part of his core programming, meaning that he will give medical care to any living creature in need. He also will not engage in combat. This does not mean, however, that he will not keep a living being locked up for their own good, or that the droids he created have any similar scruples about defensive combat. That's crazy. That's insane, dude. Wow. Yeah, he's a Frankendroid, dude. That's really cool. See, but this is why, like, I think source books have so much insane lore for Star Wars. And this is just about, like, you can make a whole freaking story about this droid. And maybe he's a villain, you know? Oh my god, it's so cool. Kerndale Article 2 if you want. Yeah, is that in characters? Let me go. Naboo Pilot Zero. Okay. Alright, so let me see if that is here. I think it's, I'm assuming it's K. Victor Jun Cirque. That's crazy, man. I guess it, you know, because it is Ultimate Adversaries. So I'm assuming that a lot of these people inside here are not good people. Rakatana. Interesting. Kayla Ravian. Interesting. Nib. Moron. Yo, thank you so much for... Yo, Forward into Black, thank you so much for being here, fam. We're doing some Star Wars horror from the source books. Pretty cool to see you. Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome. Forward into the Black with a ready up. Let's go. Did I miss him? Did I skip him? No, I think I did. I think I skipped him. Okay, here we go. This is him, right? No? There he is. Kurgan Dala. Okay, there he is. All right. So Kurgan Dala. All right, so this is going to be really interesting because Logan is telling me to read this one, and I know it's going to be interesting as hell. So here we go. Kurgan Dala never wanted to be anything but a starfighter pilot, growing up dreaming of flying past the stars in a sleek machine. He spent his free time studying computers and astromech droids, as well as sharpening his aim by shooting rocks on his home world of Naboo. As he grew, he learned to pilot small land vehicles, showing an interest in anything with a cockpit and a propulsion system. If there was ever a doubt in his mind what course his life would take, it certainly never was apparent. Kurgan was a large boy, and he grew larger with each passing year. His parents secretly worried that the boy would grow too large to be a pilot or a starfighter, perhaps being resigned to flying transports and cargo vessels instead. He was encouraged to participate in sports because of his size, but he always declined such others in favor of spending the afternoons with his droids and starfighter schematics. The day Kurgan was called to duty in the Naboo Royal Security Forces was the proudest day of his life. He spent the next several years happily training in his new ship, the Comet's Wake, and adjusting to life in the military. Even though he found the lifestyle a little boring despite his childhood dreams, he realized that he had found his true home. On a routine flight back from occupying an ambassador's ship off-planet, his whole world changed. A space wraith that happened to be floating nearby set its sights on the Comet's Wake and its burly pilot. Kurgan had spent his life preparing to be a pilot, but his mind was woefully unprepared for the task of fending off the strange parasite. His will betrayed him almost instantly, and the space wraith took hold of his mind and body. When Kurgan returned to the planet, he immediately requested to leave from flight duty. His request was granted without question, primarily because his superiors knew that only the strongest of motivations could keep the man grounded by his own request. His dedication to being a pilot was unquestionable, and he was given time to clear his head. What he did with that time was a different thing altogether. Although grounded, he was still responsible for helping with the upkeep and maintenance of the pilot corps droids and fighters. His technical expertise was well respected, and the mechanics were happy to have him, but since his last fight, something seemed not quite right with him. He often misplaced his tools or failed to concentrate when others were talking to him. His strange behavior continued for some time, and went largely unaddressed around the base. The Wraith had taken hold of his mind and forced him to begin killing his fellow soldiers. He targeted pilots, mechanics, and support personnel with equal vigor, being certain to spread the violence as much as possible to confuse the ensuing investigation. As of now, the murderers have gone unsolved, and Kurgan is planning to take an extended leave to see his family and return to his hometown, where violence and carnage will surely follow. What the hell? That is crazy, dude. So, this guy is a beast, and he's military trained, he's a pilot, so he's got insanely fast reaction time. And then this dude gets possessed by a space wraith. And for those of you that don't know what a space wraith is, it's basically like a dark-sided spirit. A lot of Jedi believe that maybe this is a Sith Lord who couldn't pass on into the afterlife, and they're just roaming around like a mindless spirit or a wraith, you know. That's what they... But a lot of Jedi don't believe they exist because they've never run into them personally, which is also really interesting to see how the dark side works for the afterlife, you know, because you have the Force Ghost, which is a light-sided Jedi ability, but this specifically is really interesting how the Space Wraith or the Star Weird can do these things, and this Space Wraith is going around using this guy's body as a vessel and being a mass murderer. That is crazy, dude. That's insane work. Would be cool if it's Tenebrous, since he kind of got stuck in purgatory. Personally, I believe Tenebrous would probably, yeah, I mean, dang, you know, oh man, yeah, that's really interesting. It could be, you know, but I think it could be any Darksider, any Sith spirit. I don't personally, though, I don't think that they would have intelligence, and I think that if they did have intelligence, like who they were in the past, I think it shouldn't be that way, because Sith should never be able to obtain immortality or everlasting life, just like Jedi can, right? And that's the whole fun thing about the Sith spirits, is the Sith spirits is kind of like hell. You know, they're very vulnerable. They have to cling. They have to suffer. You know, they're grounded and imprisoned rather than free, you know. Logan says Supernatural Encounters has something to say about this. Ooh, interesting. Lots of the Sith become ghosts and legends. Yeah, exactly. And I love Sith legends. I love Sith spirits. I really enjoy that part of Star Wars. I think that there's so much you can do with that. But yeah, space race are said to be the children of the fallen Celestials that bred with mortal races. Okay, so it's similar to the Star Weirds that you were talking about. Yeah, and it's so interesting too, because I feel like a lot of people don't know about supernatural encounters even today, you know. I feel like supernatural encounters is also waiting to be kind of like kept up and talked about. And even still, you know, I've seen a lot of people talk about supernatural encounters that are some of the larger content creators, and you know, even they're like, yeah, I don't know, it's weird, there's definitely a lot in here, but I don't know if I like it. Oh man, interesting. So I think we'll do, so let me do, for those that don't know what a space wraith is, let me go down and actually read what the space wraith stuff is, because the space wraith is right there with the Star Weird, and I've always really enjoyed, there it is. Okay, so this is the space wraith, guys. Take a look at the space wraith in Star Wars. Everybody's talking about the Star Weird, everybody's talking about Death Troopers, but they're not talking about space wraiths. There's a lot of stuff in these source books that people do not acknowledge, and it's probably because, you know, the biggest Star Wars content creator is not talking about them, but that's why your boy Lord Dagovere is here. Space wraiths inhabit space lanes and pose a major threat to small craft pilots wherever these foul creatures are encountered. These creatures exist in a state of semi-reality. It is generally believed that they are more a force than a creature, but they exhibit behaviors that lead some to assert that they are simply a unique species with traits that defy classification. On more than one world, space wraiths are believed to be spirits of the dead, who wander too close to the path of evil, or the dark side of the Force, and could not enter the afterlife in peace. Space wraiths are shadowy, insubstantial beings that float through space in a state of hibernation until a sentient being comes near them. They often float in groups, and in one known incident, a group of space wraiths inhabited nearly an entire squadron of TIE fighter pilots who were returning from a routine mission, scouting from a Star Destroyer. Before the plague was ended, nearly 400 technicians, droids, and stormtroopers had been killed. I don't know, man. Space wraiths are pretty cool, dude. I think they're awesome. I think they need to be talked about more. When a space wraith inhabits an intelligent humanoid creature, it forces the creature to act in ways counter to its normal inclinations. A technician will sabotage machinery. Loyal soldiers will kill their squad mates. Force users who are particularly at risk from a space wraith's possession will use the dark side indiscriminately. Of course, the creature's unnatural cunning is left intact, and it will not be blatant about its actions. It acts as though it had evil intent and does not stop until it can find something more to do. It can find nothing more to do. It is not known what drives the space wraiths to possess other forms, or whether or not they gain sustenance by causing such mayhem. Some believe the space wraiths are pure manifestation of the dark side of the Force, perhaps even the corrupted living spirits of former Sith, or practitioners of the dark side. Whatever the case may be, space wraiths are deadly enemies that can rarely be seen coming. Peak, baby! That's pretty sick. That is pretty cool, man. Yeah, man, space wraiths are cool, dude. Space wraiths are sick. I really enjoy them. All right, so let me we'll do like one or two more because your boy's getting tired. He's had such a crazy day at work. But we'll continue all of this throughout the next couple weeks if you guys are really into the idea of Star Wars horror. Do you know anything, Logan, from the Unknown Regions? I'm not sure if the Unknown Regions is going to have the same effect as like the Ultimate Adversaries, because it seems like everything in that source book is evil as hell. But man, I love it. A lot of hate from people who haven't read it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Star Wars Supernatural Encounters is a love letter to Lovecraft and cosmetic stuff. Yeah, Sorcerers of Ron. Yeah, Sorcerers of Ron, I remember. Trying to remember. That's a cool Mandalorian. Very sick. Oh, and it's stuff like this, right? Where this isn't horror, but I always love the scout ships that they show in these source books, and the navigation beacons, what are really cool because there isn't too many navigation beacons in modern Star Wars lore. It's usually stuff for like the Old Republic, Tales of the Jedi. It really goes to show you how they tried to navigate throughout space before there was like instantaneous or like a very vast amount of like technology that was able to transfer radio and signals and communication. It's really cool. Yeah, the Nell, of course. I feel like a lot of people know the Nell. You guys know the Nell, right? I feel like Nell and Star Weird are always so talked about because, you know, some of the larger people talk about them. Let me go here. Oh, Master of Voodoo. Interesting. I didn't know he was in here. Mustafar. Oh, are these locations? Okay, so I've made a couple videos about these guys, and these are the Ahch-to. And the Ahch-to are really interesting because they're pirates in hyperspace, and they eat prisoners. They're flesh eaters. They will literally eat you if they capture you. And it's really cool because it talks about the Chiss Ascendancy and the Empire has to deal with them, and the Chiss Ascendancy and the Empire kind of just see these guys as like really annoying. Like they're just really annoying. You know, they blow them up if they need to, and when they see the Empire, the Chiss rolling up, they run away. But if there's like a legitimate like pilot out there, or maybe just a transport, these guys pose a huge threat because they have numbers, and they will capture you and they will eat you, and at the very least they're gonna get some value out of you. So the very, very interesting looking, you know, Cthulhu type pirates here in Star Wars. What's also cool about them, I think, is they don't even really know their origins, and they're ancient. Apparently, they're some of the oldest species in Star Wars, which is really cool. But they don't really know where they come from and what their culture is. And I thought that's really interesting because when you start to read their history, it talks about how like they really don't care. You know, it says that they care, but they actually don't, and they're just more so of like ragtag goons coming together and eating people, dude. Oh, really? Oh, the Ahch-to and the Supernatural Encounters? That's really cool. Killiks are cool. Everybody knows Killiks. The Nell here. Yeah, the Nell, bro. You ain't ready for the Nell. You ain't ready. Yeah, that's cool. Cool. All right, I think what I'll do is I'll save the Nell for tomorrow, next week, and we'll start to get into that a little bit more. So let's talk about the Sorcerers of Ron. Sorcerers of Ron can offer temptation to any Force user. Their philosophy, based not on living things, but on the literal end of existence, could prove supremely seductive to a Darksider, or an object of unpleasant but necessary curiosity to a Jedi who wishes to gain understanding on how to reconcile the dark with the concept of the unifying Force. Interesting how they say the unifying Force there, which is not something that is said a lot in Star Wars. This is kind of like the grander scheme and vision of Star Wars and the Force, where like the Force runs through the galaxy, but then there is also a universe in Star Wars, which in Clone Wars, Qui-Gon Jinn also says, you know, the universe of the Force runs strongly through this place, which is really cool. And that kind of retcons and changes a lot of things too on how people believe the Force works. So if there is a universe and all of the force in the universe is running through something, that means it's much more than just the galaxy far, far away. And so the unifying is really, 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 really cool. So to the sorcerers that are rumored to possess Rakatan forges, I did not know that. Tyranics chapbooks and other relics from throughout the unknown regions. All such items have inherited dark side power and could sell for thousands of credits to collectors in civilized space. Because the sorcerers never leave the edges of the Nihil. What the flip? Did you know about this, Logan? What the flip? No way, bro. What the flip? Interesting. That's crazy. Wow. What's also crazy is it's spelt the same way as the Nihil. I did not know that, dude. Was that intentional? There's no way that's intentional, right? The Nihil retreat is not something that's mentioned at all in the High Republic. At all. Wow. That's crazy. Interesting. Wow, that's really crazy. Okay, all right. So, all right, back to the good stuff. The Nihil retreat. The heroes must come to them. Reaching the retreat requires a long journey through an empty region of space. With the right cover story, any of the retreat's worlds might accept the heroes as new disciples or pilgrims. Otherwise, the adventurers might find their ship under attack from the Dark Shear as a sorcerer in a nearby orbital platform directs waves of entropy and loosen bulkhead wieldings and pop open airtight compartments. What the flip? True sorcerers are rare on the Nihil retreat worlds, and the acolytes that live there are a little more than obedient thugs. Reaching Ron inside the Perrin Nebula is impossible without specific coordinates obtained at the retreat, or the guidance of the Force user. The sorcerers in the relic-strewn ruins are hallucinatory to behold and nightmarish to fight. Fortunately, they still are vulnerable to blaster fire. That's hilarious. A nightmare that you can shoot. The Nihil had a good chunk of the galaxy there. Yeah, which is interesting though, but this is like different, I'm assuming. I sent a map of the Nihil in Discord. Okay. I'll check it out. Let me check that out. Thank you. Thank you, Logan. Appreciate you. So, God dang it, my stream is in the way. Alright. Alright. So, we have the Nihil. Wow, why is this, so anyway. So is this a, yeah, this is a nebula. I was about to say, this is a nebula. This reminds me so much of the nebula that's in Rise of Skywalker. The truth is, the Empire, in the year 36 after the Battle of Yavin, 12 vast stellar clusters connected by the hyperspace gates and wormholes orbit the western edge of the galaxy from the grid coordinates A3 to G21. Okay. So this is really interesting. So there's a lot here. I've never even heard of a majority of these planets. Magath, Megeth. Yeah, I've never heard of any of these planets, guys. Starforge. Then where is Lehone? Is this a different Starforge? Is this something else? Am I being punked? Yeah, no, that's what I was saying too. I mean, don't get it twisted. You know, a lot of the High Republic writers, they know ball. You know, especially Kevin Scott and Charles Soule and Claudia Gray. But I don't know if anybody ever read that. So there's 5 Starforges out there around the galaxy. That is insane. Knights of the Old Republic did not tell me that. Is that something that is in Super? I feel like everything that I'm missing is from Supernatural Encounters. Like everything that I'm missing. That's crazy. 5 total Starforges. Interesting. Man, I'm learning so much today, boys. And I know a lot about Star Wars. But that's why you read the source books, man. The source books are so interesting, and it'll school anybody, dude. So Unknown Region source book has 2 forges in the Rakan Archipelago and 1 in Nile space. Okay, so... Hang on. I'm gonna have to check this out. Because I know the Rakan Archipelago because I've made a few videos, and I don't remember it specifically directly saying that there was 2 Star Forges. I know that it believed that there were, or maybe it did. Oh man, dude, whoa, what the flick? That's a brain soup. That's crazy. Get away from him. Run away. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to read it again because I just made a video on it a few months ago. Damn, man, dude, Star Wars horror is so cool, guys. Like, there's just so much that we can do, you know. Under the Elder Kruluk section, yeah, I'm gonna have to check. Because if it's just the Rakatan Empire, because I remember the Rakatan Empire area of the source book is pretty big. It's got a lot of paragraphs in it, and it talks about how the Rakatan is still alive, and most of them that ended up fleeing, they kept the slaves that they went to the Rakan Archipelago, which is really interesting because I think it's an uncharted space, but the source book doesn't really specify where it is. But I think it would make the most sense if it was an uncharted space in other galaxies. Which I think is a very plausible theory that there could be other galaxies that were untouched during that schism and are still being dominated by the Rakata, and still have centuries and centuries of legacy slaves, which is kind of crazy if you think about that. Yeah, man. I don't know, man. Source books are such a great source for Star Wars lore. If you guys ever want to check that out, man, it is pretty damn cool. But if you guys have any other questions, I'll probably answer them as quick as I can, and then I'll be out because your boy is tired, and I'm gonna go relax and got another big day of work. But yeah, man, I hope you guys are enjoying a lot of this stuff. Remember, we got Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the shorts on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube. And of course, every single Tuesday, 8 p.m. is going to be the streams. And then I also have a stream with my boys in the Starlight Pod, baby. Logan says there's a Star Forge in the Sith space. That's how the Sith built up their fleets with minimal development. Interesting. So, and that's not Lehone. Lehone is completely elsewhere. Lehone is elsewhere. Lehone is not in Sith space. I have to get the galaxy map again. So, Logan, do you have a map that, like, completely separates all the galaxy? Like, in terms of, like, I don't want to say everything, because that's kind of freaking broad and silly. But, like, if I was going to check, like, my galactic map, it wouldn't have Nihil space. And if it did, it would be Old Republic. You know, and I'm assuming this Nightmare realm where the Nihil realm is not the same Nihil space that we have from the High Republic, correct? It's completely different, especially if it's by a nebula. Ugh, this is the type of stuff, man. Santa Fanmade map. Thank you, fam. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out, man. This is the type of stuff that I would literally be up like all night talking to you and anybody else about. This is the type of stuff where I just picture two masters talking all day. I feel like someone should commission an artist to make like two Jedi masters in the middle of the Arcaves up at night with a whole bunch of books and scrolls all around them talking. I would love that, man. I feel like that's always the stream. So basically, Nihil Space is beyond the galaxy. Okay, so yeah, it's what is it's almost like a Rishi maze, or almost like a Peridia. It's just outside the galaxy, far, far away. Paranebula is a global cluster that orbits above the galactic plane. Ah, okay. Okay, so we're getting to Camino-esque type territory somewhat in its own idea. That's really cool, man. See, I think that there's so much potential leaving the Star Wars galaxy, or things that are foreign and not domestic to the galaxy. The galaxy is really awesome and has a lot of great planets. But I think what a lot of people fail to like theorize is like, dude, like what if there was a sect of dark Jedi that did not feel the call to Korriban and they went elsewhere? And I'm talking about maybe like a third of the actual dark Jedi, you know? I love the idea of the schism and the Jedi not killing the Sith or the eventual Sith, and then the Dark Jedi just going out and calling, and then maybe some of them getting there. They're like, dude, you know, this is not what I'm feeling. I'm not feeling this. I felt the call deeper, you know, and I think that's really cool too, because that's kind of what Bane feels when he's on Lihone, where, you know, I think it's Kasim, where he's like, dude, Bane, you know, Korriban is so powerful, man. And then Bane is like, no, Lihone is where the dark side truly runs, screams to me, you know. And I think that could be a really cool instance where you have that. I don't know, man. Just I could talk about this stuff all day. I really feel like it's awesome. Logan says, when Obi-Wan looks at the galaxy on the screen in episode 2, imagine one of the dark clouds above is Perron. Okay, take a peek at the map. It's glorious. Okay, yeah, I definitely will. But as always, guys, I think that's going to be it today. So thank you so much. Make sure you follow the stream. And, of course, follow TikTok if you haven't already. Go ahead and comment and talk in the polls. Join the Discord if you haven't already. It's in every single bio and every single description of every single video. But as always, guys, thank you so much. And it is so fun to see you guys on TikTok, on YouTube Live. Thank you so much. Coming into the Dark Temple, visited by Mara Jade, Luke Skywalker, and Kyle Katarn, and so many other Force sensitives like yourself. I'm Lord Dagovere, fam, and I'll see you around. Deuces.